Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Nate, and welcome back to another weather forecasting discussion for February 15th, 2022. We are officially a day out from the said significant weather event that could produce a few tornadoes, large hail, damaging winds, and heavy snow and ice accumulations across much of the people impacted in portions of Canada and the United States. Now, I do want to mention that I will be providing live radar analysis during the stages of the early morning hours of Thursday, all the way through more than likely until the evening as well. That'll probably separated into two separate live streams, but they will all be within the same time frame and there won't really be any sort of breaks. So please do not miss out on that. If you guys do want to stay up to date, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification icon to stay up to date with all the latest information that I will be providing, as well as whenever I will be going live. That is the notification bell, so please hit that notification bell. Also, please be sure to spread this information with as many people as possible by copying the link and then spread it like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, your friends and family, by text message, whatnot, so that we can try and get this information out to as many people as possible and to let people know not only that this event will be happening, but there will also be someone covering it live so that if people want to take a look and see what's happening, they can feel free to come over to this channel. And if you want to help me spread this information onto YouTube, please be sure to hit that like button down below so that we can spread it to as many people as possible, because that's how YouTube's algorithm works. And without further ado, enough of me blabbering about and self-promoting all over the shop. Let's get straight into it by taking a look at the current satellite imagery to understand the general flow of the atmosphere right now. Now, if you've been paying attention to my previous videos, we've been looking at how this low pressure system has been falling down and moving further and further south along the west coast of the United States, and you can see our low pressure system right here. This just brief counterclockwise flow right within this area over Los Angeles has created some showers and thunderstorms across portions near Las Vegas, central Nevada, as well as portions of Los Angeles, to where there's been a couple special marine warnings out just for the areas off of the coast of Los Angeles as well. So there's definitely quite a bit of some showers and thunderstorms that are moving on through. At the same time that all of this is happening, we also have a low pressure system up here in towards portions of the prairies of Canada. This is going to eventually move on closer and closer towards the Hudson Bay, and this is going to create a lot of wintry precipitation across the board for areas out in front of it. And then on top of that, that low pressure system that's over here in the portions of Los Angeles is expected to deepen and move on through here following what this wind shear value currently is, which you can see how the general flow is taking this giant dip in the jet stream right within here. So following that jet stream path right there, this low pressure system is going to eject through the central portions of the United States. And because that low pressure system is moving off towards the north and east as well, it's going to head over the exact same areas that this other low pressure system over in the prairies is going through right now. And it's going to create more snow, especially for portions of the Great Lakes, Ontario, and even Quebec and the northeastern portions of the United States. Now, before we get into all the models and stuff like that, I do want to show you guys the Storm Prediction Center's convective outlook here for day 2. So this is for Wednesday into early Thursday morning. It kind of ends at about 8 in the morning for people over there. So this is your convective outlook from Wednesday into Thursday morning. And you can see we have a 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale in the dark green and a 2 out of 5 here in the yellow. So wherever you guys live, that is your probability of seeing severe weather within your general vicinity. If you're in the light green, you guys aren't expected to get a whole lot. And I will show you guys as well the tornado probabilities. You can see the green area is our 2% chance for tornadoes, and then our brown area is our 5% chance for tornadoes. So wherever you guys live, that is your probability of seeing a tornado within a 25-mile radius. So areas from Oklahoma City all the way down towards the Dallas-Fort Worth area and everywhere in between, from Wichita Falls all the way through towards the southeastern portions of Oklahoma, you guys need to watch out for the potential of tornadoes from Wednesday night into Thursday as this moves on through. And then if we take a look at the day 3 convective outlook, I mean, you can see a much larger outlook here, much larger expansive area, to where you can see a lot more severe weather that is possible. Once again, 1 out of 5 is in the dark green, 2 out of 5 is in the yellow. And so wherever you guys live, that is your probability of seeing severe weather, or at least that's what you're on the scale at least. So just something to continue to watch out for as this moves about. Of course, as we get closer and closer towards the day 2 outlook, you'll actually have the different parameters. So it'll tell us what the percentage for tornadoes, the percentage for hail, the percentage for wind is possible from that certain day out. But for right now, this is just the general area to watch out for the most part, especially if you live over here from the Mississippi River and further eastward. All right, that is where I am the most concerned about if I was just forecasting this myself. Now, I want to go over here real quickly some of the model data that just basically gives us an idea as to why this environment is what it is and why this thing is happening. And so we're going to take a look at the 500 millibar wind shear, which is about 6 kilometers above ground level. And if you want to keep up with the date and time, it is above me right there. And 500 millibars is about 6 kilometers above ground level, so this is the upper level wind shear. You can see our big dip in the jet stream that we were talking about earlier on with our low pressure system over California. And then you can also see just a little bit of a hint, I should say, a little bit of a hint over here towards Saskatchewan, a low pressure system that is starting to develop and is starting to move on through. And as we play this out here with the North American model, you can see how things actually play on through with that low pressure system over the Hudson Bay continuing to move further and further east, creating a lot of wind shear across portions of Ontario and Quebec. So that could create some more snowfall amounts. And then you can see how this low pressure system down here towards portions of the southwestern United States starts to turn. It starts to kind of arc itself. And as it does that, you can see how a lot of the wind shears on the southeastern portions of the flank right here, it's about 90 to 100 knots of wind shear right within the general vicinity. That is just going to steer it off towards the north and east. And as this plays out from Wednesday into Thursday, well, you can start to see how the wind shear starts to amplify, especially on Thursday. Thursday, in my opinion, is going to be the more significant day of the two, which is the reason why I am guaranteeing a live stream on Thursday and not as much for Wednesday. But if something does happen, then I will live stream from Wednesday night into Thursday as well. It just honestly depends upon what happens with the short range models as this continues to get closer and closer. But man, oh man, the wind shear does look significant. And then even after this severe weather event is all said and done, you can see how significant some of the wind shear continues to get as this protrudes through the northeast. Now, at the same time that all of this is happening, we're going to take a look at the 850 millibar wind shear, which is about 1 kilometer above ground level. And you can see a couple things. First off, you can see our high pressure system, which is steering this low pressure system off towards the north and east. If you guys have been a part of my channel, all right, we have been talking about this high pressure system ever since February 4th, all right? For the people who have been sticking with this channel for quite some time, leave in the comments down below and back me up on that one, because we've been talking about this thing for quite some time. And this is basically the catalyst as to why this low pressure system is ejecting through the central portions of the United States. But then as this other low pressure system starts to protrude through here, look at this. We have a new flow of a low-level jet coming from the south to the north, and it doesn't start really materializing until around midnight from Wednesday into Thursday. And that's going to mean that there's going to be a little bit of a delay in a lot of this moisture coming from the Gulf of Mexico, because I mean, if you guys have seen the Gulf of Mexico, whether you've been there or whether you've heard about it, it usually is hot and it usually is moist. So if you have air that is coming from the Gulf of Mexico and is rising further north, you can expect the areas to which the air is heading towards to be relatively moist too. And so we can see how this plays out here with the North American model, and you can see how all that moisture there from the dew points that are relatively high within the 60s to mid 60s doesn't start to really fully rise until about midnight on Wednesday into Thursday. I know it says 9 o'clock above me, but it really doesn't start getting into the area that we are watching out for, which is areas of Oklahoma and northern Texas. And so the 60-degree dew points that we want for severe weather really doesn't start to root here until around that time frame. And that's the reason why the severe weather threat for the overnight hours isn't exactly supposed to be very plentiful and or very significant, because of how late in the evening it is and because of how late that dew point rise, that moisture advection rises up towards the north. So that is something to consider. But on the other hand, you can see our Arctic boundary that starts to develop here, and it brings a lot of dry air to a lot of cold, dry air with that. And so areas north of that Arctic boundary, man, you guys can see some snow, freezing rain, all sorts of stuff across the board as that continues to move on through. And that's just the double whammy with the system. This is going to be severe weather towards the south. It's going to be winter weather towards the north. And it's just going to continue to be that major home run for the most part as this continues to protrude on through. So to get some timings here for this event as this plays on through, this is about 8 o'clock in the evening for Wednesday, and there's not really a whole lot. There's a lot of this just scattered thunderstorms, but it's just crapvection for the most part. Convection is stuff that is actually severe. Crapvection is just stuff that's, well, crap. So there's not really a whole lot that forms here. You got some freezing rain on that Arctic boundary that is over portions of southern Iowa. You also have scattered snow showers across portions of Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado, even into the higher elevations in some areas. There's quite a bit of snow. But things really don't start firing off here until about 10 to 11 o'clock in the evening. And you can see an area here from northern Oklahoma or northwestern Oklahoma all the way down towards Childress and even towards portions of Lubbock, maybe even further towards the east of Lubbock. More than likely that'll be the case. There's going to be some showers and thunderstorms that could more than likely produce some large hail that could exist right within this area. And this is the thing to watch out for, guys. You can see this line right here that forms, as well as these other, red dots across the board. These are your storms that could potentially produce tornadoes as this continues to move about. And on the other hand, you can also see your freezing rain and snow start to expand more and more as this continues to move about from Wednesday into early morning Thursday. And then on the other hand, look at how significant some of the snowfall amounts could be over into portions of Kansas City as it heads off towards Columbia and St. Louis. St. Louis is not in the activity quite yet, but you'll see here in a bit as we continue to push off here. This event really is quite widespread, whether it's winter weather, whether it's severe weather. All these little lines here could have some indication of a renegade storm that could potentially pop out. Not exactly super significant, more than likely, is what I would guess. But if you have a storm that it's all by itself, then I wouldn't rule out the possibility of a significant tornado that is possible, especially with the given thermodynamics and the kinematics. The kinematics are really significant. Kinematics is basically the wind shear values and all the stuff like that. And we showed you the wind shear and how significant it was. But in regards to the cape and all that, as that moves on through, well, let's show you the new storm relative hodograph diagram here that basically gives an idea as to what the wind is with height as this moves on through, as well as the cape in the background. So as this plays out, you can see around 5Z on Thursday, which is about midnight, give or take, in Central Time. You can see that a lot of these red areas here that are behind these little squiggly lines, that is your convective available potential energy. For people who don't know what that is basically the displacement between warm air rising and cold air sinking. So the displacement between the two can indicate how much energy there is in the atmosphere for thunderstorms to either form or sustain. So the more the displacement, the more the cape, the stronger the thunderstorms can typically be. So you want about 1,000 joules per kilogram, and even though there isn't exactly that much, I mean, there is enough energy for thunderstorms to form, and if they can start rotating because of the certain environment that it is in, which we'll talk about here with the hodographs, it could definitely produce a tornado. So we're going to have to see how this continues to move about. But on the other hand, all right, all these squiggly lines right here, this is your wind shear with height, and so what this basically tells us is whenever you see a little hook here from the purple into the dark reds, something kind of like that, it is favorable for tornadoes. And why that is because if you take a look at the top right-hand side there, you see a radar image of a supercell that actually produced a tornado. In that image right there, it actually is currently producing a tornado. And so you notice how it has a little bit of a hook that kind of arcs like this. Well, the same thing happens here. Usually you have an updraft that forms on the southern end of the hook echo, and then the rain from the updraft gets spewed up into the atmosphere, and then it gets pushed out into all sorts of different areas. That's the reason why whenever you see a hook, it starts to spread out in all sorts of different directions like this. So all of this right here is in the upper levels, and you can see how as the hook kind of goes about and turns around in towards the dark red areas, you can see how it spreads out, and that's where your rain starts to kind of funnel out towards. So that's the reason why hodographs are so important. They basically tell us as to what the supercells could potentially be like, And of course, the larger the photographs, the better the environment it is to potentially produce a tornado. It most likely would produce a tornado in that instance as well. So it really depends upon how much energy there is, as well as what your wind shear values are within a given environment. So with that being said, you can see your photographs across the board. They're not bad, but there isn't really a whole lot of energy. And during this time period, there actually is a limiting factor, which is the opposite of CAPE, called capping inversion. And that basically limits warm air from rising, so you don't get that displacement. So we're just going to have to see how that continues to play on through. But as this goes from then and onwards towards the overnight hours, you can see how as CAPE starts to return from Wednesday into Thursday, specifically in the Thursday afternoon hours, you can see how much larger these photographs actually are in this instance. And they are very expansive across the board. Anywhere within this general vicinity right here could potentially produce a tornado if you had a renegade supercell that formed out in front of the open warm sector. So it's just one of those things where we're going to have to continue to watch out for how this continues to play about. And of course, these things will more than likely be some type of high precipitation type supercell, because in the upper levels here, it's very close to where the origin is for storm motion. Right in the middle of this giant circle right here is to where the actual photograph is heading towards. So if there was a storm to form, it's actually moving off towards the north. And so if you have your upper level wind shear that is relatively close to where your storm relative photograph center actually is, you can attribute that to potentially more of a high precipitation type supercell. And we usually see this in Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee around this time of year anyways. So it's not really anything different, but if there was a tornado to form, it would most likely be rain wrapped. So you guys probably wouldn't see anything, and that's something to definitely consider moving on forward. So just something to consider as this moves on through. It's just one of those things where if a thunderstorm can get by itself, take advantage of the amount of energy that's in the atmosphere, as well as with the good kinematics that are in the atmosphere. With that, you are more than likely going to see a storm that could produce a tornado, maybe even a significant tornado, if it gets enough energy with it. So it's just something to where we're going to have to continue to watch out for that. Of course, as I said, I will be live streaming, so please be sure to stay tuned to that if you guys can. But just finishing this off here, you can see how a lot of these storms really start to fire off even towards the late evening hours of Thursday. But by then, in my honest opinion, that's when things really start to become linear. You still can get a bit of a tornadic threat along this big line here, but I do think things will more than likely start to become a strong damaging wind threat, especially as to how the actual energy levels start to really deplete by this time frame. So now we're going to take a look at the timings for the snowstorms and stuff like that. You can see how your clipper starts to move on through that we were talking about in the beginning of the video, and how it creates snow for portions of Ontario and Quebec. Not exactly towards the areas near Toronto and Windsor and Montreal, Ottawa. So you guys aren't really getting too much from that until it starts to move on through towards the Thursday morning hours. And that's when things really start to get pretty interesting, because along this Arctic boundary right here, you can see the big boundary in general. But along this, you have a lot of warm air that's coming up, and then you have a lot of cold air that's meeting with it. And this is kind of just creating a bit of a stalemate for the most part. So for some areas, you actually have warm air that is put above the cold air. So when you actually have a snowflake that falls through the atmosphere, it goes down below, it encounters a bit of warm air, which is right in here. It melts down into a raindrop, which is right about there. And then if it has another batch of cold air, which is right down here, that raindrop actually refreezes into either sleet or freezing rain. So it's one of those things to where if you live over here in these salmons, in these purples, you guys need to watch out. And if you guys live in the dark blues, you guys are more than likely going to see some snow. It just may not be freezing rain or sleet, although I do think you guys could potentially see some freezing rain and sleet within some of those areas. So I wouldn't be surprised with that. But you know, just for some timings here for the most part, Chicago, you guys are more than likely going to start seeing your snow sometime around Thursday afternoon. You guys over there in St. Louis, you guys are expected to get maybe just a little hint of this event as this moves on through Detroit. All right, Detroit's going to get this event for quite some time. All right, so the afternoon hours of Thursday all the way through as this plays about in towards the early morning hours of Friday, sometime around midnight into about 4 o'clock in the morning. You guys are going to be getting a lot of wintry precipitation across the board. What about Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, Quebec? Well, you guys are expected to get a lot of this activity, but things officially don't start to turn into wintry precipitation until sometime around the late afternoon into the evening hours, when this really starts to push on through on Thursday. So just watch out for that. You guys could potentially get that all the way through until about 4 in the morning the next day on Friday. So watch out for that. And then, of course, there is the potential for another Alberta Clipper to move on through sometime from Friday into Saturday as well. So watch out for that. So some of the snow totals across this area, you can take a look here and you can see a very fine line of significant snow across the board. In some instances, it can be almost a foot of snow, maybe even more than that within some of these confined areas. So Kansas City, Topeka, central portions of Kansas, all the way up towards portions near Chicago, north of Detroit, that general vicinity in towards portions of Ottawa, Montreal, Quebec City. You guys could even potentially get up to 20 inches of snow possible within that general area. So I would continue to watch out for how this continues to progress. And it's one of those things where the line could move a little bit further north as well, all right? I would not be surprised if that was the case. And the snow totals aren't exactly concrete. You can also see how fine that actual margin of error actually is. So it's not exactly expected to be the most, you can also see across the board the potential for freezing rain is possible, all right? The maximum in the bottom right-hand corner says about 1.25 inches of freezing rain is possible. That is way more than an NHL ice rink needs for it to be actually playable. You need about 3/4 of an inch of ice in order for an ice rink to be playable for the NHL, and you have well above that. So some areas could get NHL-sized ice rink amounts of ice within some of these areas, all right? That's just mind-boggling. So if you live within some of these areas, you need to watch out. Toledo, Detroit, Peoria, St. Louis in some spots definitely could watch. I would say Wichita, you guys need to watch as well. Buffalo, Rochester, Toronto, areas near Windsor, you need to definitely watch out. And even Cleveland and Erie, you guys need to watch out as well. So definitely an instance to where there is a quite a big potential for widespread activity from the freezing rain department. All right, so we talked a lot about what could happen here within the next few days. What about what happens afterwards? Well, we got something interesting here, all right? We go back to our former pattern that we were in before all this activity existed, which is these clippers that form here in the prairies, and they just kind of move across the border of the United States and Canada. And we had that before, and we're even having that right now, right before this big low pressure system moves off and creates the big mess that we talked about. So play this on through. You can see our low pressure system does move on through the Great Lakes. We have another band that starts to move on through, and then look at this. This is really interesting here, you guys. You can actually see our developing low pressure system just off of the coast of Baja California, and this will actually move on through the central portion of the United States, and guess what? More than likely bring some severe weather across much of the area. You can see in the north, you get a lot of snow and freezing rain, and then towards the south of all that, you can see a big band of rain that more than likely will create some severe weather, possibly, all right, possibly from central Illinois down south towards the deep south. So we're going to have to continue to watch out for how that continues to play out, but it is a little bit too far out to say specifically as to what could happen as well as where this is going to happen. So the only thing we can do is keep you guys updated on the channel. And that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like, as it does help my channel out a lot. Subscribe if you are new, and turn on notifications to stay up to date with all the latest information. As I said, I will be going live on Thursday morning, so you do not want to miss out on that. And please be sure to share this with friends and family and on social media. Follow me on social media. Link will be in the description down below. My Give It To Me Straight question of the day. We didn't have one yesterday. We do have one today. It is, do you think Thursday will have an enhanced risk for severe weather? If so, for what? Is it going to be for tornadoes? Is it going to be for hail? Or is it going to be for damaging winds? Could it even be higher than that? Or will it stay a slight? I want to hear you guys' thoughts in the comments down below. I will pick the one that is the most interesting and, in my opinion, somewhat factual. And I'll pin you. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video on Wednesday night, unless if I live stream, to which I will be talking to you guys in person. So peace out, everyone.